I moved back in with my parents after they retired to support them with rent and bills. Then they told me to leave so my brother could move in after losing his job. Still, they expected me to pay all expenses. I, 32 male, always knew I was the backup son in my family. You know how some parents pretend they love all their kids equally? Mine didn't even try to hide their favoritism. My brother Alex was their pride and joy. Me? I was just there. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Minneapolis, my mom would literally beam whenever Alex walked into a room. She'd corner random people at church or the grocery store to brag about Alex's LA accomplishment, while I stood there like a damn shadow. When he left for college at Northwestern, she was depressed for months. Not exaggerating. She called him every single day, like she was going through withdrawal or something. It was honestly pathetic to watch. It wasn't that they hated me, I just wasn't Alex. He was loud and played football and got all the attention with his charismatic personality, aka being an obnoxious loudmouth. I was more reserved, but still athletic. I wrestled in high school and even placed at state twice, but somehow my trophies ended up in the basement, while Alex's participation ribbons from elementary school football got prime display space in the living room. I'm not even joking. This dude had a most improved certificate from 4th grade football hanging in the hallway until I moved out. I figured out pretty early that no matter what I achieved, I'd never measure up to St. Alex in their eyes. Even when I graduated with honors in business management and landed a solid job at a medical equipment distribution company, my mom's response was, "That's nice, honey. Did you hear Alex might be up for promotion at his marketing firm?" Mind you, Alex had been up for promotion about 5 times already and somehow never got it. Probably because he spent more time networking at bars than actually working. But my parents would never acknowledge that. The worst part? I accepted it. I thought that's just how families worked. Someone gets to be the golden child, and someone has to be the spare. Guess which role I got stuck with? When I was 23 and had been working for about a year after college, my parents dropped what they thought was good news. They were retiring. Mom had been bouncing between random part-time jobs at clothing stores for years, and Dad was done being an insurance adjuster. Their brilliant plan. I'd move back home to help out until Alex had kids. Then they'd move to Colorado to be near him. Fast forward 5 years. Alex still hadn't produced the grandkids they were desperate for. Actually, he was struggling big time. Him and his wife Megan could barely pay their bills in Denver. The last time I saw him was 2 Christmases ago, where he spent the entire weekend bitching about his condo, his boss, and basically his entire life, while wearing designer clothes he couldn't afford. He'd show up in these $300 jeans and new watches, while complaining about how the system was keeping him down. He barely acknowledged me, treating me like I was the family dog that was just there for background noise. Meanwhile, I was the one holding everything together. I had worked my way up to regional sales manager, started paying rent to help with their expenses, took care of the house, the yard, everything. I even remodeled their bathroom and built a deck in the backyard with my own 2 hands. Put in those composite boards that don't splinter or rot. Did all the railings myself, the whole 9 yards. My life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. I had a good group of friends, played in a recreational hockey league, and was dating when I had time. But no matter what I did, my mom still talked about Alex like he was God's gift to humanity. When I closed a major account that boosted my commission by thousands, my mom's response was to ask if I could loan Alex some money, because he was going through a rough patch. The rough patch being that he'd leased a BMW he couldn't afford, and was now panicking about the payments. And this wasn't the first time, or the 5th, they'd asked me to bail him out. Every family gathering was the Alex show. If he bothered to call in on holidays, everyone would crowd around the phone like the president was on the line. If he deigned to visit my parents, would spend weeks preparing, getting his favorite foods, cleaning his old room like the queen was coming to stay. My birthday, Mom would make a box cake. Alex's birthday, she'd spend 3 days cooking all his favorites and invite the whole extended family. Then everything went to hell a few months ago. Alex lost his job. Since him and Megan were already living paycheck to paycheck, maxing out credit cards to maintain their image, they were completely screwed. My mom acted like this was the best news ever. No joke. She was practically bouncing in her seat at dinner. "This is perfect," she squealed. "Alex and Megan can move in while he gets back on his feet. And maybe once they're settled, They'll finally start a family. My stomach dropped. The way she said it made it obvious she'd been waiting for this exact scenario for years. Not once did she ask what I thought about it. I was just expected to go along with whatever Alex needed, like always. I remember staring at my plate, pushing around the mashed potatoes, and thinking, here we go again. Alex messed up, and everyone bends over backward to accommodate him. It got worse. A few nights later, they sat me down for a family meeting. They wanted me to move out. There just wasn't enough room for everyone, Mom said with this fake, sweet voice. Besides, it's time for you to focus on finding a wife and starting your own family. But here's the kicker. They still expected me to keep paying rent even after I left. I just sat there, feeling like I'd been sucker punched. For 5 freaking years, I'd put my life on hold to help them. I'd been the responsible one, while Alex lived his life hundreds of miles away. And now they were kicking me out so Golden Boy and his wife could take my place. Dad must have seen I was about to lose it, because he quickly said I should take my time to think about it. But I didn't need time. For the first time in my life, I saw my parents for what they really were. It was never about being fair or appreciating what I did for them. It was always about Alex. I remember asking, dead serious, so let me get this straight. You want me to move out of the house I've been maintaining and paying for so Alex can move in, and you still want me to pay rent after I leave? Mom had the audacity to say, well, we're on a fixed income now, and Alex will need time to find a new job. It would just be until he gets back on his feet. And how long will that be? I asked. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, you know Alex. He's so talented. He'll find something in no time. Right. Just like all those other times he was about to hit it big. I'd heard that song before. By morning, that emptiness had hardened into pure rage. I kept replaying every family dinner where they talked about Alex instead of asking about my promotion. Every time Mom showed off his old high school jersey to visitors while my wrestling trophies gathered dust in the garage. Every sign that I was just a placeholder until they could get their golden child back. And now they wanted me out, but still expected me to pay their bills. Hell no. I wasn't going to be their ATM anymore. I told them I'd think about it, but my mind was already made up. I was done being their backup plan. Over the next week, I quietly packed my stuff. Started with important papers and valuables, then clothes and other things I couldn't live without. I didn't tell them what I was doing because I knew I'd lose it if they gave me any crap about it. The thing is, I'd accumulated quite a bit of stuff over the years. Weights, equipment, books, clothes. All of it had to be cataloged and packed carefully. I had built a nice collection of tools working on the house, and I wasn't about to leave them behind for Alex to pawn the minute I was gone. I carefully packed my granddad's old toolbox, the one real inheritance I'd gotten in this family, making sure every socket and wrench was accounted for. While packing, I looked for a new place to live. Since I'd been paying a big chunk of their mortgage anyway, I figured I could afford my own apartment. Found a decent place just 15 minutes from work. Good layout, 2 bedrooms, and a balcony where I could grill. Most importantly, it was mine. I signed the lease on a Thursday and arranged to move in over the weekend, all while my parents thought I was thinking about their proposal. Little did they know I was methodically extracting myself from their lives. Leaving that night was intense. I waited until after midnight, partly because it felt like a prison break, and partly because I couldn't handle their questions or guilt trips. I had already moved most of my stuff gradually over the past few days, telling my parents I was reorganizing when they noticed boxes disappearing. This last trip was for my bed, the rest of my clothes, and my gaming setup. I left my house key on the kitchen counter with a short note. Found my own place. Don't contact me about rent. Simple, direct, and to the point. Everything our relationship wasn't. I loaded the last of my stuff into my truck and drove away without looking back. The next morning, I blocked my parents and Alex on literally everything. Phone, email, social media, even LinkedIn. Didn't want him trying to contact me through work connections. For the first time in years, I felt free. That first week in my new place was like stepping into a new life. I could leave my gym bag on the couch without Mom complaining. I could come and go without explaining myself. I even started meal prepping properly and got back on my workout schedule without interruptions. I set up my weight bench in the second bedroom, got all my protein and supplements organized in the kitchen, and, for once, didn't have to explain to anyone why I needed so much chicken breast in the fridge. But of course, the peace didn't last. About 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a call from an unknown number. Almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. It was my Uncle Rick. Rick and Dad had this competitive relationship since they were kids. But unlike my dad, Rick didn't mess around. He'd always been straight with me, and I respected that. He was the one who taught me how to change my oil and fix a leaky faucet when Dad was too busy watching Alex's high school games. "Jake, what the hell, man?" he asked. "You just disappeared on your parents. They're about to lose the house." What? I was completely blindsided. "What are you talking about?" That's when Rick dropped the bombshell. Turned out Alex had been jobless for 6 months, not just a few weeks like Mom claimed. And my parents had been secretly sending him money the entire time. Not just small amounts, but thousands each month to keep both him and Megan afloat in their expensive condo. To make it worse, they'd taken out a second mortgage on the house without telling me. I could barely process what I was hearing. "So, let me get this straight," I said, my knuckles white as I gripped the phone. "They borrowed against the house without telling me, then expected me to keep covering their mortgage while they kept bailing out Alex and Megan?" "That's exactly right," Rick confirmed. "And now they're panicking because they might lose the house if they miss more payments. You need to step up and fix this, Jake." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Fix it? Why is that my responsibility?" "They're your parents, Jake," Rick snapped. "Family takes care of each other." "Really? Where was Alex when they needed help? He's been bleeding them dry for years, while I've been the one keeping the roof over their heads." Rick went quiet. He knew I was right. "Look, Rick, I appreciate you calling, but this isn't my problem. They chose Alex like they always do. Now they can deal with the consequences." After I hung up, I sat there in shock, the truth sinking in like a stone. All those times they said they were a little tight this month, or asked if I could chip in extra for utilities. It wasn't because the retirement wasn't stretching far enough. It was because they were funneling money to Alex behind my back, while I was working overtime to help them make ends meet. They were enabling Alex's irresponsible lifestyle. The betrayal cut deep, really deep. For days, I tried to process everything. The more I thought about it, the more betrayed and played I felt. I'd unknowingly been helping Alex and Megan stay afloat in their pretentious lifestyle, while my parents funneled my rent money to them. And now, after digging this hole, they expected me to jump in and pull them out? This wasn't my problem. But then I started thinking about the house itself. I'd grown up there, put a lot of work into it, and a small part of me didn't want to see my parents lose it, even if our relationship was in the toilet. I'd spent weekends repairing the roof, replacing old wiring, fixing the plumbing. Sweat equity that would all go down the drain if the bank foreclosed. Plus, if I was going to keep paying for something, I wanted it to actually benefit me, not just feed Alex's sense of entitlement. So, I made them an offer. When I showed up at the house, Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad barely looked at me as he let me in. I wasn't surprised to see Alex and Megan sitting there too. Alex had that smug look on his face, like he'd already won some game I didn't know we were playing. He'd gained weight and was wearing a flashy watch that probably cost more than a month's rent. Typical Alex. Broke as hell, but still had to keep up appearances. "I know about the second mortgage," I said right away, standing with my arms crossed, watching their faces. Mom's hopeful expression immediately changed to guilt. Alex just frowned, looking confused. "Rick told me everything," I added. "Mom, Rick needs to mind his own business." "Maybe, but I'm glad he didn't. Otherwise, I'd still have no idea you were using my money to pay for Alex's expenses." Dad started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish. I'm not here to fight or rehash the past. I have a solution that benefits all of us." I laid out my proposal. I would take over the house completely in my name, handling the mortgage legally. No shady promises about someday. A real official transfer. They could continue living there, but only if Alex and Megan paid their fair share of rent. At least what I'd been paying since I was 23. Mom hesitated. "This is our family home. We're not just going to sign it over to you like it means nothing." "It's not nothing," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "It's your chance to keep the house instead of losing it completely. Right now, the bank owns more of it than you do. If you keep missing payments, they'll take it back. This is your best shot at staying." Of course, Alex had to jump in. "You can't just walk in and take something that doesn't belong to you. This is supposed to be my inheritance," he said, his voice getting louder with each word. "You've always been jealous of me, trying to one-up me. Now you're using Mom and Dad's situation to steal what should be mine. I laughed right in his face. Your inheritance? Alex, you've barely set foot in this house in 10 years. Meanwhile, I've been here looking after Mom and Dad and paying the bills, while you've been living your life 3 states away and bleeding them dry. His face turned red, but he didn't have a comeback. Just started sputtering about how I didn't understand his situation and how the job market was tough right now. Rich, coming from a guy who'd had 5 different jobs in the last 3 years, none of which he'd kept for more than 6 months. I'm not trying to steal anything, I continued, my voice calm but firm, but I'm also not going to keep throwing money into a sinking ship without anything in return. If you want to stay, you need to contribute. If not, that's fine, but I'm not paying for you to live here for free while I struggle on my own. The room went silent. Finally, Dad spoke. We'll think about it. I nodded. Take all the time you need, but remember the bank won't wait. You're already months behind on payments. This is the only way you'll get my help. As I turned to leave, Alex couldn't help getting in one last dig. This is shit, he muttered. You've always been trying to prove you're better than me. I just smiled. I don't have to try, Alex. I just have to show up. The look on his face was priceless. I think that was the first time in our lives I'd actually stood up to him directly. Mom gasped like I'd slapped someone, and Dad just looked at the floor. But it felt good. Damn good. For a week, I didn't hear anything. I figured they were still arguing about it. Or more likely, Alex was trying to convince them to hold out for a better deal, or find some other sucker to bail them out. Probably thought if they ignored me long enough, I'd cave and just give them money with no strings attached. That's how it had always worked before. Then, out of nowhere, Megan called me. Her voice was shaking with fear. She told me Alex hadn't paid a single cent toward the mortgage, even after they received a foreclosure notice. He kept insisting I was just trying to trick everyone into giving me the house, and that it wasn't his responsibility. But Megan wasn't buying it anymore. I don't want to lose the house, Jake, she said, her voice trembling. I know your offer is fair. I've been trying to find a job, but Alex keeps saying I don't need to work, that something will work out. He spends his days playing video games and going out with his friends, while your parents are panicking about losing everything. If I don't do something now, I'll end up homeless. She went on to describe how Alex would leave the house at noon, claim he was networking, and come home drunk at 2 a.m. Meanwhile, Mom was still doing his laundry and making excuses for him, even as the foreclosure notices piled up. I actually felt bad for Megan. She wasn't a bad person, just stuck with my entitled brother. So I made her a new offer. Same deal as before, with one change. Alex had to leave if he refused to pay rent. Megan could stay, but he was out. I can't kick my own brother out, I explained, but I can set terms for him staying in my house. If he can't meet those terms, he needs to leave. Megan agreed to present my offer to everyone. Part of me wondered if she was secretly hoping Alex would refuse, so she'd have an excuse to get away from him. That next meeting was a total shitto. As soon as I brought up rent, Alex completely lost his mind. Jumped up from his chair, knocked over a coffee mug, and started screaming every insult he could think of, calling me a greedy bastard and saying I was manipulating everyone. He even got in my face trying to intimidate me, but I just stood my ground. I'd been dealing with his temper tantrums our whole lives, and I wasn't about to back down now. You think you're so much better than me? He shouted, his face inches from mine. You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more. That's what this is about, isn't it? You're still that pathetic little kid who couldn't handle not being the favorite. I didn't take the bait. This isn't about who's the favorite, Alex. This is about responsibility. You've had a free ride your entire life, and now the bill is coming due. Fuck you, he spat. I don't need your charity. I'm going to make it big any day now. I've got prospects. Prospects don't pay the mortgage, I said simply. Mom and Dad tried to play peacemaker, but it was obvious they still sided with him. Mom kept saying, Alex is going through a difficult time right now, while Dad just looked defeated, like he knew I was right, but couldn't bring himself to stand up to Alex or Mom. Standing in the doorway, I said, if you're not willing to accept my help, there's nothing more I can do. Good luck with the foreclosure. Walking away wasn't easy. I kept telling myself it wasn't my job to fix my parents' mistakes, but this annoying voice in my head kept whispering, what if they lose the house? What if it's your fault? But this time, I refused to let guilt control me. I'd done my part. I'd given them a way out. They chose to reject it. Their decision, not mine. Months passed, and my life got better. I started dating a physical therapist named Sarah, got promoted at work, and even started taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes 3 times a week. My apartment actually felt like home for the first time in years. I realized how much I'd been missing. Nothing huge, just the simple freedom to live on my own terms. No one questioning why I needed so much freezer space for meal prep. No one making snide comments about my obsession with fitness. No one making me feel like I was taking up space that rightfully belonged to someone else. Then Megan called me once more, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. The bank was officially moving forward with taking the house. The foreclosure wasn't just a warning anymore. It was happening. Alex had refused to even consider my offer, and their arguments had gotten so bad, the neighbors had called the police. Twice. "I can't do this anymore, Jake," she cried. "I have nowhere to go. Alex has maxed out all our credit cards and his friends have stopped letting him crash on their couches. Your parents are having health problems from the stress. Your mom's blood pressure is through the roof, and your dad looks like he's aged 10 years in the last 3 months. Please, if there's any way you can help." She told me how Alex had been lying to everyone, claiming he had job interviews that never existed. He'd even borrowed Dad's emergency credit card and racked up charges at bars and restaurants. When confronted, he'd exploded in rage, screaming that everyone was against him and that he deserved better than this. I felt bad for Megan. My parents and Alex had created this disaster, not her. I decided to give it one last shot, but this time there was no room for negotiation. I would buy the house completely, but the title had to be transferred to my name immediately. Alex, Megan, and my parents could stay, but Alex would have to pay rent. If he refused, he had to move out. And I made it crystal clear I wasn't covering any of Alex's other expenses. "This is my final offer," I told Megan. "They can take it or leave it, but I'm not budging." To my surprise, my parents finally agreed. Guess their fear of losing the house was stronger than their need to protect Alex's ego. Even Alex didn't fight as much this time, though his face made it obvious he was seething. The day we signed the papers, transferring the house to my name was surreal. Mom kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, like she was signing away a child rather than a house. Dad just looked defeated, shoulders slumped, signing where the lawyer pointed without even reading the documents. Alex wasn't there, couldn't be bothered to show up for something this important. Typical. Just like that, I became the owner of the house I grew up in. The house I'd been helping to pay for since I was 23. The house that was supposed to be my inheritance someday. Someday had finally arrived, but not how any of us had expected. At first, things were tense as hell. Megan spent all her energy trying to keep Alex calm. Alex barely spoke to me unless absolutely necessary, mumbling under his breath whenever I came around. He'd make a big show of slamming doors and stomping around whenever I visited to check on the place. My parents kept their distance, which was honestly a relief. Mom would get this martyred look on her face, like she was suffering in silence whenever I walked in. Dad would just nod and retreat to the garage. But the problem started almost immediately. Alex never paid rent, not once. Every month brought a new excuse. He was waiting on an interview. Megan's car needed repairs. Or my personal favorite, he didn't think it was fair to pay rent in the house he grew up in because it was his birthright. The first month I let it slide. Family emergency, he claimed. The second month, I gave him a warning. Just waiting on a check, he insisted. The third month, I gave him an ultimatum. "You're being unreasonable," he argued. I gave him way more chances than he deserved. After 3 months of this bullshit, I finally evicted him. Not just a verbal, "get out." I went through the legal process, filed the paperwork, the whole 9 yards. I wasn't taking any chances with Alex trying to claim squatters' rights or some other legal loophole. When the eviction notice was served, you'd have thought I'd committed murder. Alex went ballistic, screaming that I was dead to him, that this proved I'd always hated him. Mom collapsed in tears, wailing about how her family was being torn apart. Dad just sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his hands. My parents were furious. They accused me of being heartless, abandoning family when they needed me most. But I'd heard it all before, and this time, it didn't work. If they wanted to support Alex, they could leave with him. I told them exactly what I told Alex. "This is my house now. I said firmly. I've given Alex more chances than he deserves. He's had 3 months to get his act together and hasn't even tried. I'm not running a charity here. He's your brother, Mom cried. How can you do this to your own flesh and blood? The same way you had no problem kicking me out to make room for him, I replied. The same way you lied to me about where my money was going for years. The same way you never once stood up for me when Alex treated me like shit our entire lives. That shut her up pretty quick. To my surprise, they actually did leave, reluctantly packed up and moved out. The only person willing to take them in was Uncle Rick, the same person who lectured me about how families should stick together. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Living in Rick's modest 3-bedroom house must have been miserable for my mom and dad. Had to get a part-time job at a hardware store just to pay bills. Alex, of course, went with them, still believing he was somehow the victim in all this. I heard through the grapevine that he was sleeping on a pull-out couch in Rick's home office, complaining constantly about the lack of privacy and how unfair his life was. Megan didn't last more than a week with them. One evening, she showed up at my door with a suitcase. "I'm done," she said simply. "I can't live like that anymore. Alex refuses to get a job, and your mom still treats him like he's 12. She makes his lunch every day, Jake. His lunch. He's 32 years old." Since she was genuinely trying to get back on her feet, I let her stay in the spare bedroom for a while. She found a job at a local boutique pretty quickly and moved into her own place soon after. Eventually, filed for divorce. Can't blame her. Alex had been dragging her down for years. As for me, everything just got better from there. Owning the house gave me this security I'd never had before. For the first time, I had a place that was truly mine. I renovated the kitchen, converted Alex's old room into a home gym with a power rack, bench, full dumbbell set, the works, and built a fire pit in the backyard. I replaced the old carpet with hardwood floors, painted the walls, and finally fixed that leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom that Dad had been meaning to get to for a decade. A year later, my girlfriend Sarah, 28, moved in with me. We got married in a small ceremony that I didn't invite my parents or Alex to. We've been killing it ever since. She opened her own physical therapy practice, and I started my own medical equipment distributorship after learning the industry inside out. Then, about 6 months ago, the karma hit. I was leaving the gym when my phone rang. Another unknown number. It was my dad. "Jake," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know we haven't talked in a long time, but we need help." Turns out Rick had finally had enough of their drama and Alex's refusal to contribute anything. He'd given them 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Mom had been diagnosed with high blood pressure from the stress, and Dad's part-time job barely covered their medications. "What about Alex?" I asked. "Where's he in all this?" Dad sighed. "He moved to Florida with some friends, said he needed a fresh start. He hasn't called in months." I almost laughed. Of course, Alex had bailed the moment things got really tough. The golden child had abandoned the throne when it became too much work to sit on it. "So now you're calling me?" I asked. "After everything?" "Son, please." Dad's voice cracked. "We were wrong. We've always been wrong about you. You were the one who was there for us, and we chose Alex every time. I don't expect you to forgive us, but we have nowhere else to go." For a moment, I thought about telling them to figure it out themselves, just like they told me to do when I was standing up for myself. But I'm not them. I'm better than that. "There's a small apartment over the garage that I've been renovating," I said finally. "You can stay there temporarily, but there are conditions. You pay what you can for rent, even if it's just a few $100. You don't mention Alex to me or Sarah, and you acknowledge openly that you were wrong." There was silence on the other end. Then, "Thank you, Jake. We don't deserve it, but thank you." They moved in last month. It's been weird. Mom cried when she saw all the improvements I'd made to the house. Dad actually shook my hand and looked me in the eye for the first time in years. They've been walking on eggshells around me, which is a complete reversal from how things used to be. Last week, I overheard Mom on the phone with one of her friends from church. "My son Jake owns his own business now," she was saying, with that same proud tone she used to reserve only for Alex. "He was always the responsible one." It shouldn't matter, but somehow it does. Mom's been trying to make amends in her way. She brings dinner over sometimes, or offers to help Sarah with the garden. Dad's been more direct. He actually sat down with me last weekend and apologized. Said he'd always been proud of me, but didn't know how to show it. Said he'd let Mom's obsession with Alex dictate our family dynamic for too long. It was too little, too late in many ways, but it was something. As for Alex, last I heard, he got fired from his bartending job in Miami and was asking Mom for money again. She told him she couldn't help him anymore. Baby steps, I guess. 2 weeks ago, I got an email from Alex. Just one line. I hope you're happy now that you've turned everyone against me. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh with them. But then I remember all those years I spent as the afterthought, the backup plan, the safety net. I refused to keep being the responsible one while getting nothing in return. The house that was supposed to be Alex's inheritance. It's where my kid will be growing up soon. Sarah's pregnant with our first, a boy. And trust me, if we have more children later, they'll all be treated equally. Edit update. Holy shit, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and support. A lot of you have asked for updates about Alex. So here's the latest. He's back in Minnesota now, living in some shitty apartment and working at a cell phone store. Still calls Mom regularly, asking for loans that everyone knows will never be repaid. Last week, he had the balls to message Sarah on Facebook, trying to get her to talk some sense into me about family obligations. She blocked him immediately. Dad's actually been stepping up more lately. He's fixing up the apartment above the garage, making it more comfortable for them. Mom's still Mom, still makes excuses for Alex, still gets that Martied look sometimes. But she's making an effort with Sarah, which I appreciate. As for me, business is booming. Sarah's pregnancy is going well, and I'm sleeping just fine at night, knowing I finally stood up for myself. Some of you called me an asshole for how I handled things, and maybe I was. But after 30 plus years of being the family doormat, I'm okay with that. Edit 2. For those wondering about Megan, she's doing great. Got her own place, started taking classes at community college, and is dating a decent guy who actually has a job. We still grab coffee occasionally. She's actually becoming friends with Sarah, which is a plot twist I didn't see coming. And yes, I did change all the names in this story. Not that Alex would ever read anything longer than a tweet, but better safe than sorry.